Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
It's good evening for you, Katrina.
Of course, yes. Dr. Yesterday, I can't see. I think.
It's very early for me. It's nearly 1 a.m.
Oh my God.
So it's very nice to be with you.
So what do we call it? Good evening, good night. We can't say good night because we still have you up and about.
Yeah, I think it's good morning.
So good morning, Dr. Murray.
Thank you. Good morning to you too. Are you're all in still morning, or is anyone in the afternoon or morning?
Well, from India, we are all in the morning. So the
Yeah.
others
Yeah,
will
it's
have
morning.
to update.
About to be noon, actually. And in UAE, we are 1.5 hours behind. So we're sitting at nearing 10 o'clock.
Oh, Manisha, when I finish my keynote, I was going to pass over to you. Is that the correct order that we're following?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Take it on.
I have to speak for 5 minutes, please, madam. I can't say join as a panelist, करो.
Pranam, everyone. We are excited to be joined today by educators, researchers, policymakers, and parents for today's event, the special symposium. This event will focus on the latest advances in early childhood education. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Indu Khetarpal, Editor-in-Chief of the journal Navtika. Dr. Mrs. Indu Khetarpal is the founder principal of Salwan Public School, Gurugram, established in 1997. She also laid the foundation of the Salwan Montessori School in Gurugram. She has demonstrated outstanding commitment to excellence in all her endeavors. She holds a PhD degree in educational management, is an active participant in various innovative programs of the Education Board of India in both policy making and a prolific researcher having a long list of papers presented at various forums. She has wide interests in whole brain learning and has also written several articles on the same. She has been invited to speak on many educational conferences, both nationally and internationally. As the editor of Navtika, a journal on early childhood and education, she has laid the base for interesting and informative discussions on this agenda. The journal is intended for parents, teachers, educators, research workers, and teachers trainees. Dr. Indu Khetarpal has received various awards in recognition for her outstanding work and was conferred a National Award for Excellence in School Leadership by the President of India in 2005. She has also received Endeavour Executive Award in 2009, conferred by the Australian government. She is also the founder executive member of the CBSE Sahodaya School Complexes Gurgaon chapter. She strongly believes in investing in oneself so as to inspire others and be inspired by them. She has recently been endowed by a citation by the International Confederation of Principals, Australia, recognizing her lifetime contribution in the field of education and both national and international arenas. I invite ma'am to welcome the participants to the Early Childhood Education Symposium. Dr. Mrs. Indu Khetarpal, please.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Pranam, good afternoon. No, it is still good morning. Good morning to everyone. On behalf of the team which coordinates and compiles the journal on early childhood care and education, Navtika, I welcome you to the International Symposium 2023 on learning from progressive countries, embracing change and building resilience from quality early childhood education. Now, a peep, I hope I can be heard. Is that clear? Can I be heard?
Ma'am, we can hear you, but we're not able to see you. Something's, you need to adjust your, yes. Yes, yeah. That's fine, ma'am. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And now a peep into why we started, how the seed, the thought process of starting this journal was laid. We wanted to learn, grow, innovate, and improve the classroom pedagogy, and wanted to be engaged. And rightly said that the world is a classroom without walls. And that is what we wanted to do. And so we didn't know how to go about it. This was years back. And it was at that point of time we met Professor Vanita Kaur, who was then with the World Bank and now with Ambedkar University. She encouraged us and mentored us to take our thought process forward. We visited different educational institutions and finally formed our own editorial team. Dr. Romila Soni from NCRT, part of the editorial team, Dr. Parul Srivastava with NIPSED, Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, Dr. Shraddha Kapoor with Lady Irwin College, and Dr. Subhash Chandru with the Central Institute of Education. That's how we formed our team. The team has been with us since inception and has guided us and helped us to learn, unlearn, and relearn and grow. I will also like to, at this point of time, to acknowledge the contribution of two of our earlier, they were with us earlier, the headmistress of Silvan Montessori, Mrs. Amita Tandon, and who's now with UNICEF, and Mrs. Moshmi Bose is also working for setting the state boards in another city. So they also helped us, and that is how we worked together, and we had our annual conferences, meeting with the with the editorial board members, updated everyone and encouraged the teachers and parents to contribute and write for the journal. Because after some time, stagnation does set in, and it's very important to grow. And we thought this was a platform for us to grow. And gradually we learned how to apply for the, to get the formalities completed and so on. Our teachers have traveled all over the world and picked up the best practices. And one practice that we picked up was empathetic parenting. What we did was we gave a topic to the parent with the concept note. And then we had a WhatsApp group. Everyone discussed what the issues were. And once a month we met, so that it helped parents who were not, academically inclined or educated or how to raise the children. It helped everyone to grow together and learn from each other. So that's one practice that we picked up. And second is, yes, the government is talking about, sending the government school teachers to Finland. Yes, and our teachers have been there also. So what did we learn from there? For them, each child is precious. A lot of care, respect for the child is taken. And since day one, let the child grow. What is the potential? What he or she is inclined towards? The teacher works towards that, and not just follow the same, module for everyone. So that's another thing that we picked up. And the education has to be for common good and not hereditary. So the government has also taken a lot of steps in this direction. But today, what is important is self-learning. Self-direction is very, very important. And it's like, in today's time, the pandemic time, what has it taught us? To irrigate deserts. And we just have to find our way. And is education resilient to handle the crisis? That all is very important. And this has to be done from day one. Only then the children will succeed later on. Otherwise, why do children fail? Why are they not successful? Each one has the potential, but I will say that schools have a responsibility. It is their moral duty, their spiritual duty to see that each and every child grows. That is what is important. For us, we say, all right, you have 30 children or whatever number you have, the has to be small, but each one given a lot of importance and taken as joy, God's child, and to be nurtured properly. I think that is very important. And yes, if you see all over the world, the government plays a very important role. they look after the education system, whereas in India, the private schools also play a very important role. And so the government has taken steps in terms of ICDS, Integrated Child Development Services, so to promote early childhood program, the early childhood care and education program, then the National Education Policy in 2020, and so on, to see that everyone is at par and moves together. Now, at the end of the day, what is important is child's readiness for school, school's readiness for children, families and communities' readiness for school by supporting learning through play activities at home and getting children ready for school. Therefore, transition from early childhood education to early grade learning is very important. Parents have to participate in the child's education. Some parents may have the technology and so on at home, but then the school has to come forward and support so that everyone moves together, everyone grows together. And I welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Catherine Murray, who is a global speaker, our moderator for this, Mrs. Goel, who's from DDB College, and we have a number of panelists also. And of course, above all, I'd like to thank, see, a teacher nurtures an idea, but then to make it, to see the vision and to make it true, you need a team. But above all, I would say that you need the management. Support is very important. So at this, when this idea was there, how to go about it. So of course, Salman Education Trust gave us full support to make this happen. And at this point of time, I'd like to thank Salman Education Trust also for, I should say, for believing in us and for, helping us. Of course, it involves a lot of money and so on, but then somehow we managed to break even, I think, for believing in us and encouraging us so that today we've been able to organize this international symposium. So once again, thank you very much for your support. And end of the day, we have to learn together. We have to grow together. Peer learning is very important, picking up the best practices from different countries. More or less, everyone follows the same pattern, but what suits your needs, I think that one one should do. And the panelists will discuss all this. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We now also invite you to release the Navtika edition.
Yeah, okay. No, let everyone do that together.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Can it be seen? Can it be seen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I think we can all give virtual clap for the new release here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. All attendees, this edition is now ready for reading and it explores all the innovative pedagogies across the world. And now I would like to invite our moderator for today's event, Ms. Manisha Goyal. Ms. Manisha Goyal completed her Master's in Science in Child Development. She is currently an Associate Professor in the Department of Human Development and Childhood Studies with the Lady Irwin College. Prior to teaching at Lady Irwin College, she has worked as faculty in various Delhi University colleges, taking courses in child development, human development, and the early elementary education program. She has worked on a research project with NCERT to explore students' perceptions of their emotions in learning. She is passionate about early childhood care and education, and has worked with nonprofit organizations and various schools to develop the curriculum for pre-primary and training of teachers. Her current area of interest and research includes early childhood care and education, care and well-being in human development, and importance of theatre in human development. So, Madam Manisha Goyal, over to you for the rest of the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Oberoi, for a warm welcome. And today we are all gathered for the symposium to learn from progressive countries through case studies across the globe. I thank the Navtika team for organizing this wonderful symposium and providing a platform through which we hope to hear different perspectives, share our views, and also take back learnings for our classrooms and educational institutions. Few key things for our participants today. We will be giving you space to ask questions to our panelists once the panel discussion is over. All participants attending the symposium will be given a certificate of attendance based on the feedback form. The link for the form will be provided at the end of the session and will be active till 2 p.m. only. I also request you to be active and alert during the discussions, since we will have a quiz at the end of the session based on the discussions which proceed. Participants who answer the questions correctly will be provided with a certificate of appreciation, and the link for the same will be posted before the closing ceremony. So moving on to the panel discussion and moving on to the symposium, it is my privilege to introduce to you all Dr. Catherine Murray. Dr. Murray is the founder of Future Strong Education Consultancy. She's an award-winning early childhood specialist, highly sought after public speaker, workshop facilitator, and coach. She has written numerous articles on teaching practices and parenting. She is a classroom design expert using her original brain set formula for classroom design research. Catherine works globally and uses her 40 years of experience, research, and intuition to support early childhood educators, teachers, leaders, and parents to be the best they can be. She feels strongly that children should be given the best possible start in life. Her qualifications include a Doctor of Education, Masters of Education, Bachelor's in Education, a Diploma of Teaching for Preschool and Primary, a Certificate in Training and Assessing, and numerous other certificates and awards. Welcome, Dr. Murray, and I would like to invite you to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha, for that very warm welcome. And it's my absolute pleasure to be with everybody today. Dr. Indu spoke a lot about the growth of children and the promotion of early childhood and the growth that we all achieve when we work with young children. Well, as we know, early childhood is the foundation of our future society, and the children are our future. There's no doubt about that at all. And they are the children are the ones who will be making the decisions for us when we're old. And the children are the ones that are going to be making the decisions for themselves and making their own life choices as well. So as our role as educators, that means that we have to make sure that we use some research, best practice, intuition, and experience to provide valuable and rich learning opportunities in our early learning settings. Or what does this mean, and what does that look like? Well, in my 40 years of experience, it means that we recognize the development of each child right here in front of us right now. We don't focus so much on preparing them for next year or grade 1 or high school or university or their job. We focus on them right now, and we stay in the moment with them. We support the development of the whole child, and that includes the social, emotional, spiritual, cognitive, physical, language areas to set them up for life. These developmental areas are well known, and as I work across the world, I see them being considered by teachers in their planning, their observations, and their learning evaluations. Along with these developmental domains, I'd like to invite you to consider brain development as we design and set up the learning environment. The environment that we create influences the way we teach. So the decisions we make when we're setting up that environment play a key role in what goes on in that space. there are really important considerations that facilitate teaching and learning. And one of those things is recognizing the important needs of the brain. But let's think about that for a moment. What does that mean? Because it's easy to say that, but what does that actually mean? If we look at the brain as having 3 general levels, we can make sense of children's developmental brain needs. So think of the brain as having a focus on survival and safety in the brain stem here. Think of the emotions and feelings in the amygdala, in the limbic system. Think of thinking and learning occurs up here in the neocortex and the prefrontal cortex. When we look at the brain in this way, then we can make direct links to the way we set up the environment to support the learning and engagement as we guide the development of these future adults. This is the basis of my brain set environments formula. The S is for survival, the E is for emotions, and the T is for thinking. Traditionally, we've set up the early childhood classroom in a really practical way. The easels are near the sink, so the cleanup is easy. The blocks are over in the corner so they don't get knocked over. And these are all functional processes, and they're really important and they're very practical. Where we put the furniture is in the classroom is really important, but there's much, much more to setting up the learning environment for children so that it's conducive to their learning and aligning with their brain development. We need to focus on child engagement. And the 3 pillars of design can be broken down into the 16 elements that are included throughout the learning spaces. So when we think of the 3 pillars, we're talking about the environment design for learning. We're talking about the emotions in the learning, and we're talking about thinking spaces that are supporting the learning. Now, when we combine all of these things with some major ways of setting up our room, we can align the 3 levels of the brain and have them in harmony so that children feel calm and they can think and they can create and they can engage just as we would want them to be doing. So using these really specific design elements builds the learning environment where a calm brain is a thinking brain. And that's my mantra. And it's what I aim to achieve when I work with early childhood professionals developing their learning environments. And we recognise children's interests and apply them to these smaller defined spaces that have been carefully curated to have a home-like feel, but are very much focused on skill development. Using round tables, round items and furniture placed at an angle helps the brain to see the environment as being safer than square or rectangle shaped spaces or furniture. This soothes the survival part of the brain in the brain stem. Then we add things like soft lighting, like couches and cushions in the reading spaces, attention to detail when we're adding open-ended materials to these multiple small learning spaces are important, and providing multiple literacy and numeracy opportunities. This all relates to the emotional connection to the room and helps calm the brain here in the amygdala. Acknowledging the needs of the brain means that we need to include flexible seating with the intention of adding interest to the room. So we have standing tables, we have child-sized tables and chairs, we might have cushions on the floor, we might have some adult-sized furniture used for specific purposes, and that adds to this thinking part of the brain. Even just including these few elements in your learning environment will keep the brain engaged and interested. BrainSet is a pedagogical approach that supports the development of all children, regardless of their age or their ability. Using this approach, children access learning in their own way, at their own pace, at their own level, and everyone is included. Remember, we're wanting young children to build these skills to take them into adulthood. Remember, they're going to be the decision makers. So we need to think more about the learning environment and how it supports learning as the third teacher. We must teach the child right in front of us, right now. We must be in the moment with the child. We have to keep in mind that we are teaching the child, not the content. The late Sir Ken Robinson used the term "what if." If we follow his thinking, we could ask, what if we taught individual children, not generalized groups of children? What if we taught the playful child, not the curriculum? What if our focus was on building the skills of communication, being creative, using imagination, finding solutions, making decisions, negotiating, collaborating, literacy and numeracy concepts? What if we facilitated empathy, compassion, kindness, resilience, confidence, self-esteem, and other soft skills? My view is that these are the skills that will never be replaced by AI or technology. Technology should support humans, but not replace them. Technology and AI can do the menial, repetitive jobs that require no creative thinking. But as educators, we must give children the human skills to be successful in a future with AI. Most of us want our children to be honourable, productive, healthy, happy human beings. If we teach them with this in mind, what sort of world would we be contributing to? In my view, we would be moving toward understanding and peace in the world. By designing the learning environment and complementing it with an aligned teaching pedagogy, we can achieve all of these outcomes and provide a strong springboard for children to bounce into their future. Research tells us that our values and belief systems about ourselves and about others are grounded in the first 5 years of life. So doesn't that mean that as educators, if we empower a child to be confident, independent, resilient, and valued throughout our teaching approach, that the environment design, then we are supporting the positive development of these young children to be productive adults in our future society. Let's not prepare children for the year ahead or for their job. Let's look beyond and let's think about the type of society we are shaping. Let's look at setting up children for life. Let's create a calm, engaging, rich, playful, fun learning environment so that children fall in love with learning and think using a calm brain. I believe it's our duty to give children the best possible start in life. It's been my honour to share my thoughts with you today, and I'd love to stay connected with you and hear your thoughts too. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can find me on futurestrongeducation.com or brainsetformula.com. And I encourage you to embrace a change in your teaching, to build resilience and add to the quality of early childhood education and the children that you work with daily. Part of your change practices could be to look at the environment and change the environment around a little, but it could also be to subscribe to the Navtika magazine. And I'm sure that these ladies on this lovely platform here can hook you up with that if you need to do that. So with that, I will say thank you, and I will close this keynote address to you, and I will pass you back to Manisha Goel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Moray. I think it was so encouraging to start with the idea and describing not only the plan of brain set, classroom design, but also going beyond and really looking at where are we looking at our children being, what is our expectations, where do we see them, and based on that, then following through. And small changes, the beauty of, how you addressed that, where are we looking the children as, how will they be? We're looking at them as a whole child. We're looking at an environment which is so conducive. You're looking at every single small thing of what you're providing to the children. So thank you very much for this wonderful address to all of us to kickstart the panel discussion. Yeah,
you're most welcome.
We will now have a small video presentation to have a sneak peek into some of the best practices from early childhood classrooms. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. As we move on to our panel discussion now, I would like to welcome Ms. Anju Mehta, Dr. Komal Verma, Ms. Paramjeet Kaur Dhillon, and Dr. Tapinder Kaur Gill, and introduce to all of you our four panelists. Ms. Anju Mehta is a dedicated and motivated educator with a diverse background of teaching and leadership roles behind her. She belongs to Delhi, India. She was the director at Xavier's Group of Schools in India. Before joining DPS, Ms. Mehta was a part of the senior leadership team at Shining Star International, Abu Dhabi. She is a passionate teacher and continues to work towards making classrooms a place of joy, and a leader who believes in distributive leadership, with the thought that the school belongs to all stakeholders. She's also committed to helping the underprivileged and runs an NGO for the underprivileged in Delhi. She has studied education and assessment systems in UK and Australia, apart from India. As the principal of Delhi Private School, RAK, Ms. Mehta aspires to place the school as the hub of excellent education in the city. Under the guidance of the leaders, the school integrates the best international best practices along with the local values and heritage into the CBSE curriculum. Anju believes in technology immersion into the classroom. She's a Wakelet ambassador, a Microsoft Innovator Educator, a T4 ambassador, and a receiver of International Innovative Educator Award 2019 in the House of Commons, British Parliament, London. Thank you for joining us today. We also have with us Dr. Komal Verma. Dr. Verma is the program head of the Department of Psychology at British University, Bahrain. She's earned her PhD under the supervision of India's top psychologist, Professor S.S. Nathavat. She's a higher education professional with a diverse background in training, teaching, mentoring, and as a psychologist and health expert. She attended top Indian educational institutions such as Punjab University in Chandigarh and holds certifications from NIMHANS and IIM. She makes significant contribution to MED Talks on a variety of topics. She is interested in topics that span multiple disciplines. Welcome, ma'am. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Paramjeet Kaur Dhillon, who is the principal of Kamla Nehru Public Schools in Punjab, in India, with an experience of an educator for more than 4 decades. She holds an MSc in physics and a B.Ed with a gold medal. She has visited 14 different countries and holds the title of Microsoft Innovator Educator Trainer and Fellow. She's a resource person for Central Board of Secondary Education, CBSE, New Delhi, and also a British Council validated master trainer and MIEE trainer who has trained over 1,200 educators across India. She spearheaded IT transformations at Kamla Nehru Public School, including one-on-one anytime, anywhere learning. On November 27, 2017, she was invited to Microsoft headquarters in Seattle, Washington, to receive the Global Enterprise Challenge Award, with Kamla Nehru Public School being the international winner. She's a pioneer in aligning the entire school curriculum with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. She founded the Friendly AI Project, in which over 2,400 students from 110 schools in 29 countries are involved. She was recognized by Microsoft India for connecting with 600 plus classrooms in 57 countries during the 48-hour Skype-thon on November 5th and 6th, 2019. She has been recognized and awarded by multiple SDG organizations, including the United Nations. She has been a pioneer in shaping what a modern school can look like. She's also leading the way for rural and smaller private schools in India to enter into this century. She has been training bigger schools in big metro areas now. Thank you, ma'am, for joining. And finally, I'd like to welcome Dr. Dapinder Kaur Gill, who's a cognitive neuropsychologist with a background in clinical psychology and has worked at Wimhans and Citizen Hospital, McLean Hospital, USA, and Circle of Life. She's a CME alumna attending Harvard Medical School in 2019 and has worked in elite hospitals in Delhi and the United States on de-addiction, clinical issues, relationships, family therapies, child development therapies, and mindfulness rotations. She works with a diverse range of age groups, children, adults, and geriatrics, and different service users. Struggling with learning disability, neurological disorders, executive difficulties, and mental health problems. Thank you all for joining us today. I welcome all 4 of you for the panel discussion. So to begin with, there is something that I'd like to actually put forth to all of you and ask you your perspective. We all know that early childhood education is one of the best investments a country can make to prepare children for learning and give them a chance to thrive later in life. So we'd really like to know your perspective on the importance of ECE in laying a strong foundation.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
So I start by thanking the Salwan Trust for inviting me here. It's such a pleasure and honor. And I, of course, welcome all the attendees who found time on this Saturday to be here. And it is something that all of us are very passionate about, early childhood education. Reason being, we know that the development a child goes through in the first 5 to 8 years of their life make them what they become later. And there is no doubt about that. We also know that parents typically send their child to a preschool or for ECE for 3 typical reasons, the 3 R's: relationships, repetitions, and routines, right? Which is true. Betna seekh jayega is what is on their minds, and that's why they send the child. And that's what happens. The child learns to be collaborative, learns to be communicative, learns to be, reflective and integrative and all of that. Now, what I bring with me as the international best practice is the critical thinking that we are supposed to incorporate at that age. Because apart from other skills, critical thinking is required for the child to be a good 21st century citizen. It's when we incorporate inquiry into our teaching, when we stop giving them predictable outcomes, when we give them stories and role plays where they preempt the end and not us, when they are able to kind of imaginarily think as to what could be the end of a story, what could be the end of this role play, is when, critical thinking, enterprise, innovation, all that comes into our teaching and their learning. So I would advocate here for student-led classrooms and not teacher-led classrooms. As Dr. Murray had very rightly pointed out, that the moment is now, but what we are preparing them is for the future where they have to take on this world. That is my take.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Komal, would you like to share your views?
Yes, sure. Just to continue further, because we do believe children who start strong are more likely to have better outcomes when they grow older. So once we have this belief set, I think providing supportive conditions for early learning and development is more effective and less costly than trying to remedy the consequences of early adversities later. So why not to actually lay, emphasis on the early education? And I think there are broader, 3 reasons why we should actually invest in early education and pay importance to it. I think broadly, as I said, the mental health and communication, making children more independent is one basic criteria. But the second criteria is also, equity in the market can be brought up by providing equal education that every organization and every rather country is emphasizing on. So talking about child poverty and educational disadvantage can be lowered down if early education is provided at large. And thirdly, when all females, all mothers actually feel protected that if their child is being exposed to early childhood, good learning environment and the safe environment, so I think they can move out and add to the workforce, and that technically actually account for economic growth as well. So I think not only at the societal level, but at the national level also, the contribution can be seen in the progress of not only the individual, the improving the citizen quality, but also the economy. So yeah, that's why I believe it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Paramjeet, would you like to share your views?
Yeah, yes. So again, good morning, and it's afternoon now, and thank you everybody. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. So let me share some perspectives on the importance of early childhood education and how it can lay a strong foundation for children for future success, and how we can all ensure the opportunity that the children reach to their full potential. So that becomes very, very important. So first and foremost, which I would like to talk about, is the brain development. Early childhood education plays a crucial role in cognitive, social, and emotional development of children. The brain undergoes rapid developments, and it actually stimulates the growth further and help the children to understand the cognitive and social emotional skills. So that becomes very, very important. That's the first point. The second point is, again, I think one of Dr. Komal did mention, it provides equal opportunities. Equal opportunities in the sense there could be children with some disadvantage from disadvantaged families. But if they invest in the early childhood education, they go to a school where we really focus a lot on it, then regardless of the family's problems, issues, and challenges, it's a level ground which all the children in a particular school would get. So that is a plus point when we invest in the early childhood education. Coming to the next point, it would be that there's always better learning outcomes if we go for high quality ECE. So because early childhood education lays a strong foundation for literacy, numeracy, problem solving, and critical thinking skills. If we talk about all these skills when the children grow up and so on and so forth. But if we can have these skills practiced and create situations and environment where all these children can understand this without knowing that this is critical thinking, but they go for it, go through it. So then all this would contribute to the success in the later stage of their lives. And then investing again in ECE can reduce the cost of education and social services in the long run. Say how? Remedial education not required at a later stage because a strong foundation has been developed. Special education at a later stage, not required, because a strong foundation has been developed, because they had invested a lot in early childhood education, went to a school which had this aspect being focused a lot, so it really adds to it. Then ECE program, once again, the early childhood education program, if you invest over there, it helps the children to develop the social and the emotional skills, such as empathy, cooperation, and self-regulation. So all this is learned at too early a stage, and they all need to practice when they go ahead. So, and it'll be so easy for them to navigate complex situations in their life at a later stage. So best thing to do is to invest. Countries should be investing in the early childhood education. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Dapinder, would you like to share your views?
Yes, sure. I welcome everyone over here. And I think ECC is very important for children as well as for teachers and parents. As everyone over here, they have mentioned about that, how important it is for children, but I feel that it is equally important for teachers and parents to equally involve in the childhood and in the child growth. For example, I feel that, parents, they don't really know about they cannot really differentiate between disorder and the developmental milestones. They think that that there is something wrong with their children, but they also need to see that they are also going through certain kind of developmental milestone which they need to complete. And this knowledge is lacking in between teachers as well as the caretakers of the children. So I feel that if the children are involved, if parents are educated enough, if teachers and the caretakers are educated enough in early childhood education, they can build a proper environment for the child for a proper growth. As it is already mentioned by Dr. Indu Khetarpal, that empathetic parenting, and that self-learning, and it starts from day one. It never starts that, if your child is not eating green vegetables and so on, maybe you have never focused on your child during the very early stage in focusing, that they are eating all the green vegetables. And also it is mentioned by Dr. Murray that children learn with their own pace, right? So they have their own pace, they have their own developmental milestone which they need to complete. So we need to focus on this particular area. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're all at a consensus to say that the child is the center, where we understand that each child is unique and their development goes through a trajectory which we have to recognize and be aware of. And while doing that, as a strong foundation, we need to be together as all the stakeholders, whether it is the teachers or the caregivers who are in to ensure that there is early brain development with multiple ways. And we take them forward and understand the importance of skills which can be developed, whether it is critical thinking, whether it is empathy, etc. So if we lay that strong foundation, we will know that we are secured for our future. So that is one key takeaway from all your viewpoints, that we need to be there with our children, feel them, be aware, and move forward. So while we understand this, it is also important for us to place these aspects into the approaches or the approach of the school or the curriculum. So Ms. Mehta, if I could just ask you a question, and if you could share with us that how can we make the early childhood education pedagogy innovative? Is there some literature that you feel talks about how it has been, how it's changed or evolved, and what are the future possibilities for it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Manisha. As I said before, and as has been brought out by all the other panelists also, it is very important to change the outcomes and make learning not too predictable, for the children to keep guessing, for them to stay involved, and to for their future, it's important to keep the classrooms dynamic. They should have choices. They should not be just told what to do, that here is the story and here is what is going to happen. You write it and learn it and come back and rattle it out tomorrow. I mean, they learn to speak, they learn to even role play, but they do not learn to predict. So hence what happens is that they are very happy to take those ready solutions rather than creating their own solutions. And hence what is required for future, the problem solving aspect does not really come in if we give them predictable outcomes. What we feel is we're giving them a lot of love and affection by giving them what is ready on a platter. So I'll give you an example. We have a program called Mystery Readers in our school, where grandmas and grandpas come and read to the children. So one of the very innovative grandmas, she said, I'll tell you a story, but you have to create your own end. I will not give you the end. And she gave that very typical story of Thirsty Crow. She told them the Thirsty Crow story and then asked the children, what do you think the crow could have done better? So one of the little children said, ma'am, if I were a crow, I would have got a straw and quickly drunk looking for stones and pebbles and putting them into the pot. The crow, the modern crow, would have got a straw and he would have drunk the water and gone away, flown away. And similarly, many other solutions came in. And similarly, when I saw in your video an activity on float and sink, there was this discussion when float and sink was done with an orange, how an orange, when it's not peeled, it stays afloat, and when it is peeled, it goes down. How there was a discussion among the children as to what happened. What do you think happened? The children came up with the theories of how the orange was not wearing a life jacket. So hence this happened. So hence my take in this whole thing of innovation is there are two things, as I said. Don't let them predict the outcomes. And second is, it is very important, and it is a very big international best practice for the teachers to track and put the students in different profiles so that you can actually work in an individualized and a personalized manner with every child. You should know whether a child is a visual or kinesthetic or an auditory child. You should know whether a child is a slower learner or a fast learner, and whether a child is a literary child, or are his cognitive skills better, or are his fine motor skills better. In that way, for 25 to 30 children, it's not difficult to keep taking notes and put children in profiles wherein you can work in a differentiated manner with each child. So the biggest thing of the day is differentiation. Work with every child in a personalized, differentiated manner. And you will see how every child shines, grows and shines when they go to the next class. I hope it makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, yes. In fact, when you talked about how, we need to track each child and keep that child and put children together and be able to give individualized attention in education, which is not really related to always with special needs, but it's each child unique, and then how do you move forward with it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes educators get stuck with, because if it's a large class, even if it is 2025, they get overwhelmed with the with the children and with the different learning styles, because recognizing them and working with that learning style sometimes can also be challenging for an educator, and that sometimes also creates a certain behavior issues in the classroom and while you're trying to manage. So are there some strategies which you suggest that the teachers can include and or work towards? Because 25 students, you put them in place, you recognize them, but you still may encounter. So some tips from your end which you've seen work well.
Yes. So the biggest and the best thing about early childhood education is there's no syllabus to run after. You don't have to complete the CBSE syllabus at the end of the session. So hence, you can have fun with the children. You can make your classes also fun and engaging. That is the first thing. And for differentiation, as I mentioned, it's not just to say that you recognize their learning styles and you understand their talents, but it's also to create tasks which are different for different children. You can have groups which are probably, depending on the teacher's taste and choice, they can be homogeneous or they can be heterogeneous, wherein children of different talents can sit together in groups, or they can be children of the same talent, high learners and slow learners in different groups, or they can be mixed, where they can be buddy learning and they can be peer learning and they can help each other. So when you do like that, what you can do is you can create different task sheets, different worksheets. You can have different auditory tasks in a corner where you can have, some audios playing, and you can have different video tasks where, children watch a certain video and take down their notes or maybe speak about it. So it's very important to do a formative analysis initially to see where a child is placed in terms of their level and in terms of their potential and talent. And I believe, like you said, every child is unique. Every child has a unique talent. It's just very important for a teacher to recognize it at this stage and take them forward in that capacity. So the first thing is to track and understand with a baseline as to where a child stands with different activities. And second thing is to create work and create samples and to create fun tasks and fun activities which suit that particular group or that particular child, and then track again as to how they're performing. And that is the report that we need to share with the parents, that here is your child who's showing a clear flair for something like this. Don't push them to do otherwise. And when you start saying this and when you pass it on to the next class teacher in the transition, it makes a world of a difference to a child's development. So hence, an early child educator's role is absolutely critical.
True. Thank you, Ms. Mehta, because
I
think
I don't want to take the other panelists' time.
Yeah. No, but it also puts into perspective the idea that when we are looking at the child, while we talk about it as individual and then in a group, because when we look at peer learning, when we look at working together, when we're looking at constructing things together and deconstructing things together, we really go beyond and we say that the development is not only connected to academics or a task, but really looking at a holistic development of children.
Absolutely. That is how you get that holistic development in the class, through engaging every child in their own capacity.
Correct. So when we look at it individually, and I'd like to ask this to Dr. Komal, that, in her view, how do you feel that if we are looking at holistic development, then how do we make it accessible and, scalable at a level? Because when we look at the diverse socio-economic fabric of every country, it's very different. So when you're looking at one classroom vis-a-vis so many and in so many different places, and with diversity, how do you make it scalable and workable?
Yeah, so I think right now when we talk about the country's perspective, so here every country nowadays, definitely they are thriving towards, and after UNICEF, declaring that yes, education and equity education for all is something which is necessary, and special focus on early childhood education. Definitely all countries are working on it. And in recent decades of development and research, it has been documented, that there are multifaceted development benefits of early childhood education, which is, on the health, when you talk about social and emotional well-being, as mentioned, social equity, and at the large economy. It really helps the countries to progress and grow, because ultimately young children are being taken care of well. So definitely the holistic development comes in. But as I agree with the panelist, talking about the multidisciplinary education or research and how multi-sectoral collaboration can happen. So we need to focus on that ecosystem where all the stakeholders are involved. Maybe the parent, the child himself, and the teacher, and maybe the next environment that the child goes into. And that comes with a lot of thinking, planning, and policy making. And I think so first important thing in that ecosystem is, we need to focus on education and doing a lot of research in understanding what is required. So when we talk about the 3 strands of research, which supports the importance of early education in early years, so 3 important research areas will be neuroscientific research, where we need to understand what is the critical brain development concerns, how the child brain develops, and we understand 0 to 6 are the crucial years, but what stimulate the brain so that we can provide the apt environment. And the next part will be the social science research, where a lot of development has happened, where they're trying to understand what is the requirement and the need of the society, and also what is the readiness of the parents of the kids, that they need to come out and get this kind of environment, because societal readiness is also, which is very, very important. And you need to emphasize on the requirement and the importance of it. That's how parents will be open to, send their children for maybe the early childhood development, which can happen in these setups. And thirdly, talking about how it can, maybe emphasize on the growth of the country at large and how it makes every country different. So I think these stakeholder approach is something which is very, very important, and they need to work in collaboration with each other to achieve definitely sustainability goals, which we all are talking about to be achieved by 2030, where education for all is something which is important. So in this, setting up this ecosystem approach, which is very important, we need to understand what other countries are doing, because it is always good to learn, from developed countries who have already adapted certain models. And why not, we can understand the strengths and the loopholes and the weaknesses and try to fill the gap and make ourselves, better in serving the early childhood education to the whole country and the environment. So as everyone was talking about, try to understand that every child is unique. So definitely when we see the best practices model, their focus is on every child is unique. We need to really focus on not only on the testing and monitoring in the initial stages, it is more about inculcating and giving them the stimulating environment. So when we see the best practices of countries, talking about European countries or the Nordic countries that we always say have really outperformed when we talk about early education. And they have been taking this position dominantly for many years now in all the rankings, that, they are serving children by understanding that children have a natural curiosity in them. And that is one of the enabled process and the environment that needs to be provided to them, and not really focusing on assessing and monitoring in the early stages. So, and also, UK is also performing really well in that context where, for example, I went to one of the British school where there was a sports day. And to my surprise, there was no first, second, or third prize to be given to any, small kid. It was just about promoting unity, teamwork, and just enjoying the whole thing. And it was really surprising, because I was just coming from the Indian school scenario where I studied, and just looking after now British curriculum, how they perform in their real life with small children especially, because they believe yes, competition is important, but yeah, it may take time, it can come on the later stages. So I think these are few of the concerns, because the whole focus is on developing the belief set in the children, so that they are able to promote their learning and development, making them more independent, communicating, which is very important, and inquiring. Kids should be really curious in asking questions rather than why this question coming, or you'll be assessed on this question. So no ifs and buts attached to it. And healthy living and physical well-being is some of the important parameters of best practices which countries are offering. So yes, and I think there are certain global standards and indicators on which the countries are working on in developing their early childhood model. And just to mention, in the research done by again UNICEF, which provided certain indicators, and the indicators were social context, availability of services, as you said, about the accessibility, affordability. That's why public houses are being asked to come into the sector, so that it can be for the socially disadvantaged children, where they don't get the home environment, where stimulating environment can be provided. So government should come in and provide some activities related to community-based activities, as for example is being suggested. So I think this is something I'm talking about, the quality. So process and ensuring the structural policies and the qualities is something which is very essential for early childhood development of children. And just to mention, as Dr. Dipinder mentioned about, yes, teaching or teachers are something which are very important. So, giving due advantage. So a lot of countries, as I was talking about European countries, they are really paying, paying them really well. Talking about a special, trainings and education for early childhood teachers is something which is very essential, because they need to be paid at par. Because we always believe human capital is an asset. So if they are happy, if they believe that whatever they are doing is really making a sense to the whole world, so definitely, why not? They are being made a complete important stakeholder. So I think that feeling should come in with all the policies that are being made, and that can really make a good difference in early education system. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Chawla. I think an insight and continuing into where you talked about the stakeholders being together, and I think communication becomes a key. If we have to make anything scalable, if we have to really go beyond our own small niches, sharing and communicating our best practices, sharing and communicating what works, what doesn't work, and trying every day something new, because every child is, new, every teacher is new in that sense. And when we do that, it really brings about a change in the system from its roots. And one interesting thing which you talked about, the learning environment, and the children have a natural curiosity, so they want to go and explore, they want to go and work in their environments which are provided to them. So then that makes us reach to a point where we say, okay, so where is the learning environment? If it's in a classroom, if it's in a school, then who is the key person who is engaging with the child at that point? It could be a teacher, it could be a helper, it could be somebody in the system where they're spending large part of their time. So I'd actually like to ask Ms. Paramji this question. And, when we are looking at a successful ECE program, and we're looking at teachers at the center of really implementing that program, and there were some techniques which Ms. Mehta talked about, whether it is making dynamic classrooms, ensure things are not so predictable, and you're working with the children constantly. How do you think, and what are the other maybe some of the some more innovative strategies which the teachers can use to make the learning environment very innovative for this to happen? You're on mute, Ms. Kaur.
Yes. So thank you, Manisha. So learning environment, if we want it to be innovative, for innovative learning, as you call it, the curriculum needs to be innovative. The teachers need to be innovative. Maybe I'll take these steps one by one and go ahead. So the teacher should understand the needs of the student. That's the first and foremost. And then we did talk about the teaching, the teaching styles and the learning styles. If the teachers have their teaching style, the students also have their learning styles. And here comes the role of Howard Gardner's 9 multiple intelligence. If we can incorporate all those 9 intelligence, and let's be intelligent, fair. They talk about equity, equality, caste, color, creed, everything comes in. But intelligence fair? If a child is good in sports, wonderful. Let's be fair there. Let him, if the child is good in singing, why not? Means art integration, the CBSE talks a lot about it. So all this need to be kept in mind when the teacher is designing the curriculum. Then it would be innovative, and then it would be, innovative learning happening in the classroom, accordingly skills, And when the teacher designs the curriculum, or we call it the skills which are required, the focus is again the student. So we should have clear goals, clear learning goals. What do we want our children to learn? And on the basis of that, we have to go ahead and see which skills we would like to develop, what type of curriculum, what type of innovation we'd like to go for. Then our strategies should be such that they're very creative and they are very engaging also. So that needs to be kept in mind. And then, of course, without technology, nothing happens in this world. So technology from the very beginning should be there in ECE. And then we have to make sure that we have some activities wherein we foster collaboration and teamwork and provide opportunities for students to give their voice, and they should have a choice. Differential curriculum is what Anju talked about, so that needs to be kept in mind. And here I would like to talk about NEP 2020. National Education Policy. You have answers for everything for early childhood education. If you go through this NEP 2020, how to implement it, how to go about it, what type of curriculum, what type of teachers. So everything is given there. So we need to abreast it, adopt it, and, actually put it into practice. So first and foremost comes the comprehensive curriculum, which we need to develop. NEP talks about it, right? And then the capacity building of the teachers need to be looked into. All right. So the CBSE says 50 years of empowerment of the teachers, capacity building. Yes, we have to invest in capacity building of the teachers. And then, of course, when you talk about ECE, the infrastructure need to be strengthened. Means all those, the video which we saw says it all. Everything it says, whatever we need to do it or whatever we all are doing it in some ways or the other. There were examples, everything was shown in that video. So the infrastructure, we should have those, some digital box, digital resources should be there, play equipment ought to be there. Then, of course, this NAP promotes activity-based learning. So the child should be able to explore and then discover and learn through play. And then, leave no one behind is very, very important. Whether you want to have skills developed, whether you want an innovative curriculum, whether you want the child to do well, whether you want to invest, everything, when we do it, we have to make sure that no one is left behind. So inclusive education becomes very, very important. Children with special needs to be taken care of. Again, NAP says so. And then, of course, partnership with parents is very important. Whatever you want to do in the school. Yes, it's so challenging and so different when it comes to a very own country, India. But if you go abroad, you find how parents are involved. But in most of the cases, it is not involved in India, See, my school is it's in a rural background where we cater to children from 265 villages, first generation learners, and the parents have never been to a school. So it's so different and so difficult, but it is so loving because, you can do everything you want in this world for those children. And the parents are very happy and satisfied. And most of these children are living with their grandparents. Parents have gone for greener pastures to different countries. So everything happens. So for them, all the more necessary that we look into this early childhood education, and the partnership of the parents becomes important, especially during the COVID time when the children were sitting in the laps of their grandmothers and we had to call them, please come, we want to download Microsoft Teams in your office, and parents also. And we did it, and we did succeed with it. And today we are happy and satisfied in school because we could manage to continue when it came to no lockdown for education. As all skilled people and bring them to your classroom. So that is very, very important. And that's what we're practicing. And then, of course, lots of research and innovation needs to go in. Now, my laptop, I get a message again and again, your internet is unstable. If it becomes so, then I will reconnect or use my phone. So not to worry. And then talking about the skills, what skills need to be developed? Be it be ECE, be it be grade 12, be it be any class. The 21st century learning skills need to be developed. And what are these 21st century learning skills? Of course, it is critical thinking, creativity and innovation. Communication and collaboration is, I believe, the skill which is responsible for success when we grow up. All right. Even the little child who can communicate better is the most friendliest one, and people love that child. The teacher loves, most popular, and he or she succeeds a lot. And then, of course, digital literacy is another skill which we talk about. And of course, after the COVID, it is resilience, which has become very, very important. We need to develop this skill, and all these skills come with an innovative curriculum. And all the innovative curriculum comes with empowered educators, because empowered educators are responsible for engaged classrooms. So everything needs to be kept in mind. Now, if I continue with my thought process, Manisha, if you let me go, may I continue for another minute or two and then wind it up? And I don't know whether you have some questions, or I'm answering all that you have in your mind.
Please continue.
I have a thought here, Paramjit ma'am. It's a beautiful and brilliant thing for the parents to come as volunteers and be with the children. But in our classrooms, we are very scared that they'll come and they'll see and discover everything. So we are very scared to invite them. So we have to really draw the right balance, ma'am. It's a beautiful suggestion.
No. You know what, Anju, what do we do? Our classrooms are open to parents. Even during leave apart the admission time, they say, we want to put a child in grade 6. So what we've done, we put a board outside, and we have that mark, and then they can just scan it, and then they can see a teacher teaching in the class. The video is there.
Lovely.
Yeah, that's one thing. Otherwise, you say, they have apprehensions. I said, all right, go and sit in the class. So irrespective of the year and the time, these days admissions are going on. Every parent wants to sit in the class and see. Welcome. The teachers are used to it. The children are used to it. The children put in the best behavior. The kindergarten, if you go and see, And when they know that somebody is witnessing them or seeing them, you just see how they're going to raise hand. Everybody raises hand. Everybody asks questions. They are the best, they put the best foot out. Be it be grade 6, pata nahi aapke school mein kya hota hai, how it's going to happen in your school. Welcome, come and sit in the classroom. That's the way we go. And no teacher has any problem. People say, corridor mein nahi jana, classrooms hai. But we say, on the other hand, we say, come sit in the classroom and see how things are going on. That is the trust and the faith which we could get from the people around. So we are open, we have kept our doors open, they can go. And since this is the culture, since every teacher is used to the fact that the classrooms are open, it is doing wonders. You know what happens? It's building the confidence of the teachers.
It's true partnership, ma'am. This is what we require in a school.
Hidden agendas are there, and everybody, it's a win-win situation for all. I know where I'm going to put my child. So that's how it goes around. And then, talking about EC once again, it's responsible for a strong foundation. Lifelong learning and development goes for it. And that's the place, where we can develop love for learning. If we develop love for learning, in Punjab, they say, either you पढ़ाई दे पीछे लग जाओ या पढ़ाई नू अपने पीछे ला लो, something like that. So it's as simple as that. So if we can develop that love for learning there, this love is not going to run away somewhere, and we cannot drop it down somewhere. Now the love is gone. So we can continue with this. And so the love of learning and the curiosity, it's so good. Now, all the while we would have this, the nature walk in the school gardens.
Yes.
Virtual classroom, what to do. So we had a virtual nature walk where we saw beetles and bugs and everything. It was so interesting. So we need to go for it. We should have a growth mindset and tell the children that, these opportunities, what if you haven't done well? Let's do it. Let's change it. Let's modify. And then self-efficacy, that yes, they can actually win. They can actually succeed. So the children are confident, when it comes to it. And then, of course, social emotional learning becomes very, very important, because it's here where we can develop, where the children can understand and apply the knowledge, attitude, and skills which they have needed to manage the emotions. All right. So it is, I'm feeling sad. We have those emojis, and the child says, I'm feeling sad, and what to do when you're feeling sad. So all those things can be done at this ECE level, and this can be multiplied and modified as we go ahead. And then we can always tell the children to express, especially in all the classes, mostly now in the primary and sometimes in the middle classes also, where we have the circle time. And the children, the best thing the children love to do is the next day when they come to the class, especially in the ECE, they hold the hand of the teacher and say, my mom came and my dad came and this is what they said. All stories comes out. Then what is important is we should have the development outcomes. I think I should be talking about. This refers to the skills and abilities as the child is growing up. At this particular stage, what activities he can go and to what level. So that type of curriculum should be there, development outcomes should be there. Then cognitive development, of course, as we move ahead, the child should be learn through play-based activities is what they talk about. And of course, physical development is very, very important. So I did see the zigzag walk and all those things in that video. I said that video says it all for EC. And of course, language development becomes very, very important, because that's, as I said, numeracy, language, all this is developed in the ECE curriculum and in that particular stage. So the curriculum should be emergent curriculum. So it should be such that it can hold the interest and the needs of the child as the child is developing. So that becomes the emergent curriculum, which I'm sure most of the schools have absorbed, adopted as such. And integration of technology, there's no alternative to it. So all these things are very, very important when it comes to the skills, the innovation, the curriculum. That's all which I would like to say right now. I think I've taken some time.
Not at all, ma'am. Thank you. I think it was really interesting to hear about open classrooms and the fact that how transparent is the system. I think often when we leave children in the school, the parent is wondering what is happening, while there is, but having a sense of being able to see, witness, and be comforting. I'm sure it happens once, and they're so comfortable that they don't want to keep coming back again in the classrooms. Because you develop that trust, and that's what holds actually both the parent, teacher, and child, and the larger institution together, to help the child develop to the best of one's ability. So yes, the curriculum needs to be innovative, and the teachers need to be innovative. And when one central theme which emerges from this, while we talked about each child being unique, is also understanding that when we are looking at an inclusive and an individualized plans for children and including them. So I'd like to actually go to Dr. Dapinder and understand that often in the classrooms or institutions, when we have a constructed plan of implementation of the curriculum, and while recognizing each child is learning at their own pace, what are the certain areas which come as conflict areas for educators and for children that can be worked on to ensure that the 21st century skills are provided, we are able to innovate while keeping each child in mind. So over to you, Dr. Dapinder.
Thank you, Ms. Manisha. So I'll just share a small case study. So it happened when I was working a few years ago in India, and there was this child of, I think he was in first or second grade, and he was not able to copy the stuff which is written on the blackboard on his notebook. And teacher and principal and the other caretakers, they got very upset. The child was like, he's just first grader, and he was getting scoldings separate. Parents were troubled, and even the tuition wherever he was going to, that teacher was also troubled, and everyone complained, and they said that हमारा बच्चा वर्ड्स नहीं फॉर्म करता है, ब्लैक बोर्ड से कॉपी नहीं कर पाता है, और हमें नहीं पता कि ये क्यों नहीं करता. So in the end, they must have gone to different psychologists, and but in the end, I think they came to me, and the first thing which I told them was that okay, this is the problem. I said, what is the problem? And they said कि हमारा बच्चा जो है ब्लैक बोर्ड से नोटबुक में कॉपी नहीं कर पाता है, और इसके वर्ड फॉर्मेशन ठीक नहीं है, कुछ भी कॉपी नहीं कर पाता है, इसको आगे भी बिठाया पीछे भी बिठाया, we have done every possible thing, but the child is not able to do this particular thing. And the very first thing I told them, I told the father, okay, इसका आपने आई चेकअप करवाया? वो कहते नहीं, ये तो करवाया ही नहीं. I mean, this is very basic thing, right? Coming back to the question, first we need to understand the structure, that what exactly the structure we are talking about. So this structure in the classroom or in the school which we follow can be syllabus, a pattern, different timings of different classes. For nursery we have different classes. For pre-nursery we have different timings, and the breaks in between. Some schools, they prefer having one break in between the 9 different periods, and some schools, they have like 2 small breaks in between the periods. And then we have like ICSE and CBSE board, which are most common. The second thing which we need to understand, that how it creates conflict, all this structure, all this pattern, how it is creating conflict. So the conflicts can be created mainly because of certain things, and namely it is that what environment the child is getting, what environment in the school he or she is getting, what environment he or she is getting outside the school, even with the friends, in the tuition, in the playground. We need to be very careful about it. Second thing which we need to see, that why these conflicts are created, is that we need to see that how responsive is student in the class, or how responsive he or she is when the school leaves when the child leaves the school and go at his home, and how he is explaining things to the parents and even to the grandparents and, even to the fellow friends. So we need to see all these things. The second important thing is that, we are talking about inclusive and individualization over here, basically. So the very basic thing over here is that mother and father, they are both equally, they should be involved in the development of a child. Sometimes what happens is, I have seen so many schools, I have worked with schools in Punjab, and I always saw mothers coming up, for the parents meeting, and father is always busy out of, because of business, because of their work, and mothers were there to come up. In those cases, what happens is, we are guiding the mother, but what about the father? What about the fatherly figure, right? And another important aspect over here is parents, they do not want to seek help because they have Google doctor, even if they want to. I had one patient coming to me. They especially came from UK, because their child had ADHD, and they wanted to take homeopathic medicine from India so that ADHD can be cured. And it took me around 10 days to explain it to them that it is a neurological problem. This problem cannot be solved. It's like you are talking about cancer, and cancer can be solved through by taking homeopathic medicine. So this is the education, the knowledge they have. The amount of knowledge they have about the childhood disorders. So parents need to be informed about all these basic childhood disorders, and also they need to know about the difference between how the child is normal or how the child is abnormal. For example, I know everyone, I'm not blaming the parents, but I'm blaming even myself. I have also done this thing quite a number of times. Something happens to me and I Google it. And if you, search ADHD symptoms on Google, Google is not going to provide you correct symptoms. What we psychologists use is, we use, ICD, DSM, to categorize that whether it is a clinical ADHD or not, or whether it is clinical depression or not. Having stress, the child is not talking enough, the child is not playing enough. Parents feel, they get very troubled, and they think that, okay, my child is going through certain kind of problem, but they are not focusing that it can be a developmental milestone of that child. And they are missing on that point. And even parents, not even parents, but even teachers do that. So as, Dr. Mehta, she was explaining it so much better when we are supposed to talk about the inclusive and the individualized programs, that, how the child, the teachers need to know that where child is better at, whether he or she is better at maths, or whether in arts or science, etc. And, I really like that how Dr. Komal, she framed that the stimulation of the brain is so important, so that we can find out that area, right? That where we have to exactly place that child. And, including the, talking about the inclusive learning, about the 21st learning skills. It's about critical, learning, as talked by Ms. Paramjeet, and very nicely quoted that we need to know the technology and we have to move with the pace of technology. We cannot tell, the child, stop using your iPad, stop using your iPhone, because YouTube has everything, Google has everything. So they have to ask Google, they have to ask Alexa before they ask the parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gul. I think very interesting conversations we've had up till now to really and opened up perspectives on so many things. So while you talked about, the dangers I felt of labeling a child. See, when we look at each child and we look at the pace of each child, for both teachers and parents, for us to know what is the development pattern, and thus to ensure that we catch on something which is early to help and support the child and provide early intervention enough for it, and also to recognize that certain things are part of development and they may not necessarily be atypical characteristics, as we would put it. So danger of labeling is always there, and we must be very, very conscious कि हर बच्चा क्लास में भाग रहा है तो ये तीन बहुत ज्यादा भाग रहे हैं तो इनको ADHD है. You hear statements and you hear, because we are gradually moving into the understanding of what is development like, and be conscious of each child. So sometimes we always tell teachers not to use loose labels for children, whether it is active or whether it is ADD hai. So things like that, I think, really help us to gain more knowledge. So yes, and we need to look at definitely the environment the child is getting, whether it is inside the school or outside the school. And I think how Ms. Paramji talked about being transparent, I think really helps within a school setup. And really innovating our curriculum, like Ms. Mehta said, will help us put things together while, beautifully looking at classrooms and education process. So thank you all the panelists for such an enriching discussion today. And now we'll move on to the curtain raiser, which is the next section of the symposium. And for this, I would now like to introduce and welcome Dr. Yashasri Vispote and Dr. Tanu Kukreja. Dr. Tanu is an associate professor at IILM University. She teaches psychology to undergraduate and graduate students. She is passionate about psychometric testing and child psychology. She believes in doing innovations in teaching the young minds, and is also a corporate trainer. She's also created tools for children and has extensively worked in the field of early childhood and special needs. She has done excellent work in identifying strengths of children with special needs using multiple intelligence theory, which we've been talking about, among many others. So welcome, Dr. Kukreja. And Dr. Yashasri Vispote is a psychiatrist and founder of Peaceful Mind Clinic. She has worked at prestigious hospitals such as Dr. R.N. Cooper Hospital in Mumbai, Baba Atomic Research Center Hospital, Mumbai, Nair Hospital, Mumbai, and Central Jail Hospital in Tihar in New Delhi. She strongly believes that mental health is of utmost importance, may it be of mother, father, teacher, headmistress, or the child. She encourages the thought that mental health education should start from school age. She gives psychiatric consultation services to children living in rural parts of Nasik called Pimplat at the project run by Vivekanand Kendra. She specializes in the cases of ADHD, autism, concentration problems, intellectual disabilities, behavioral issues, and childhood sexual abuse. I welcome both of you to this curtain raiser and to share your views and opinions on the same. So we've had a lot of conversation about, individualized plans, and we've looked at equity and inclusion as being a very important theme in early childhood setting. So, Dr. Kukreja, I'd like to begin with you and ask you that, according to you, what do you think are the measurable goals for that? And what can be, if it's ignored, then what are the long-term consequences for the same?
Thank you. Thank you to the organizing team of Salvan Trust.
Could you be a little loud? Sorry, yeah, it's.
Okay. Is it any better now, ma'am? Is it fine now?
Yeah, it's breaking, at least for me, a bit. Is it breaking, Yashasvi?
Yes, it is breaking. You are not audible. Can you be a little louder by using both earbuds, I think?
Okay. Yeah, I'm using both of them.
It's better.
Maybe I just.
Yeah, it is better now.
Is it what?
Is there any connection problem at your end?
The battery is working fine. Am I audible to you now?
Yeah, metallic voice is coming.
Ma'am, it's a mic issue. Please keep closer, mic, ma'am. You have an external mic, ma'am?
Yeah, that is working fine. That's okay. Does it sound better now?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it does. Is it better now? Okay, maybe I had to refresh it. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Goyal. Thank you to the organizing team of Salvin Trust for having me here. And it was a great learning experience for me to learn the perspectives of my learned colleagues from nation and abroad. Thank you. So coming to your question, ma'am, about the inclusion, we know that there is a precursor and there is a successor to equity and inclusion. The precursor to the equity is diversity. So I'm readily accepting with all my heart the variations that we have in the people. It might be related to ethnicity, religion, gender, beliefs, languages, anything and everything. Okay, so I accept it. The next part comes is equity. After accepting, I am, creating equal opportunities, creating equal assets, equal resources for the people who are from different backgrounds, right? And then how do I implement? How do I bring that equity actually onto the ground is inclusion. How do I do that? Okay. And then my core agenda is to bring this inclusion is to create the belongingness in the society. That the people who are from different backgrounds, they feel safe, they feel secure, they feel affectionate, and they feel connected with the society. This is the core agenda, I think, to create the connection within the society. So when it comes to, talking about measurable goals, what should we do? There has to be few basic things I think that we need to do. These are 4 that I'll be talking about. One is we need to work on our belief system and we need to reevaluate, assess our belief system. And I'm talking of belief system, which is, individual as well as social belief system. As a society, this is my viewpoint that we work in extremities. Either we resist the change or we just go towards the extremities of labeling, as you said, to the children. So there has to be a perfect balance of the thought that I accept everybody for whosoever they are. And there's a simple thing that we have to do. We have to create the unconscious trainings within the society. The educated strata still has the awareness, but if you go towards the village, there is no awareness about having this diversity and the acceptance and what is government doing about it. So we need to do those trainings. And then next part, which to me is very important, our vision and mission as an organization. Sir, every organization has their vision. So our vision itself should speak about inclusion. My vision of society should be about inclusion, that I am readily accepting all kinds of children in my schools. And I heartily welcome them on whatever criteria we have. So our vision and mission is something very important. So because it's a vision, our vision and mission will give us the goals, where to move forward. It is going to give a direction to. And therefore the next step, which is our goals. So we have to create short-term goals, long-term goals, surrounding the inclusion part. A short-term goal could be that I have a vocational skills center in my school where the children with special needs are learning gardening, they're learning art and craft, they're learning something, handcrafted material. So by doing that, I'm making them independent, I'm making them employable, which was my agenda of the education, that they are independent later on. So third is creating those goals and keep checking those goals. What goals are we trying to achieve and for whom? Inclusion is a responsibility of the society. It's not for any monetary benefits, rather it's our responsibility to have inclusion. And then the last is our action plan and actions. So when I speak about it, I say there has to be a specific action plan. If there is a vocational skills center, who is the head of it? And what are the strategies that we are forming? Who will be able to enroll? Who are eligible for it? Who are not eligible? Making an action plan and then making it work.
and we reevaluate again. For example, we know that government has this pension scheme for special children. They get certain money from the government, but at the same time, we know this is a temporary help. What we wanted is that the children somehow should come in the front and should not be dependent on the parents. Ultimately, there is a gap between the parent and the child. How long the parent would be able to take care. So whatever is possible, there are services as well the government is giving, but fact is there is no awareness at the village level. So there is more curiosity to have that pension rather than sending children to have those learning programs. That's the struggle that we do. So these are the 4 goals, ma'am, 4 measuring goals that I look up to, that on this we'll have to work. And you also asked, what if the inclusion is ignored? My answer is that we cannot literally ignore inclusion, because that is the core of society. If I am saying that inclusion is being ignored, so I'm automatically accepting exclusion, which is not my core. The core of the society. The core of the society is that we are connected. We are there for each other, and that is what makes us flexible. That is what makes us empathetic towards each other, and through that we learn a lot. We literally learn a lot from that. So inclusion, if you see special children in the class, the typical children, they come forward to help these special children, and these special children make a beautiful bond with those kids, and they're helping each other. It's such a beautiful scene to see. So though there are little challenges in doing that in the classroom, and so we'll also lose flexibility. And Dr. Komal talked about it. I also wanted to mention this, that as a whole, in long term, we'll lose the growth of the society, and it will also include the economic growth, because we are losing on the points where we are actually not using the skills of the people. If you see Israel and army, they are hiring autistic people because of their perceptual ability. Their visual spatial is very good, and that is why they're hiring them. So we need to find out what are these skills. Everybody has a different skill set. So that was my point. Thank you.
True, I agree. I agree to the fact that we actually can't ignore inclusion. If we do that, we are actually excluding. And the fact that we all are diverse, we all come from diverse spaces, it really brings us to a point. And especially like in India, when we see we're in a classroom, everyone is different. They're all coming from different backgrounds. Right. If we don't accept, if we include, we can all get included and excluded in different forms. I think Ms. Mehta had to share a point. Yeah.
I just wanted to share one small point about inclusion, that typically educators believe that inclusion is including our special children only, whereas in a class there are many groups of students, abilities-wise, color, creed, culture-wise, economic status-wise. So we have to take them all together. The progress of a typical class is when all groups of students in your class have moved together to a certain level, not just the bright ones or not just the not so bright ones. Thanks. I will
absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely.
Yes, I think, and it comes down to the vision of society, like you said. What is the larger vision that we have for our society and raising our children? I think all our conversations have been about that, what is it that we hope our children to be and where we hope them to be. And, within that, one important concept comes in is of resilience, that, how do we make children resilient? And I'd like to request Dr. Yashasri to please share with us, like we've seen in the last few years, and especially during the pandemic, there was a lot of emphasis on mental health and management of stress. And each one, it was not only adults, but also children going through it. We were all at home, and we were, a large part of it was confined for us. And, there were more don'ts than do's, so it really left a mark at some level. So is there, when we look at, or think about raising resilient children, then what can be done at school level, at ground level, where we look at having a socially inclusive approach? So if you could share something about that.
So thank you for inviting me. And about resilience, what we can do is simple things are there. For example, for the 10th board exam, if the child is ill or sick due to malaria or something, we need to teach at that time that the situation is not permanent, right? The change is constant. Nothing else is constant. So you can give the exam later. Or for example, for COVID, like the situation was common for all the people. So no need to worry that everybody is not able to go to school and there is virtual classroom. And because of that, you are not able to meet your friends. So we need to teach that from the school level that we need to build the resilience. Whatever comes, we don't have to focus on the problem. We need to focus more on the problem solving. So if this approach, we teach the child, so the resilient children we can build.
So true, not to focus on the problem, but rather to focus on the solution or find out the solution for what we can do. And I think resilience comes from environment as well as self. So when we are really looking at empowering our children, they also see through us. So in order to really be those models for our children in classrooms, at home, and ensuring that we keep the line of communication open, I feel, with them constantly of, what you feel, how you feel about it, and let's discuss. So I feel that helps us to really include and move forward in our conversations with our children. So thank you, Dr. Tanu, and thank you, Dr. Yashasri, for such a interesting conversation with you. The chat box is live, and I'm seeing there are many questions which have been coming in. So we'd like all our panelists to please answer those questions. I'm going to ask those questions and share with you. Sorry, just one second.
Yeah, I have been answering. I hope the answers work for the people.
Oh, superb.
I did give an answer. I did write an answer for one of the questions which was put up to me. So I've done that. And I saw.
Sorry. Yeah. So we have Mr. Dharminder asking us that how to help children to stay focused considering today's era of ease in access to almost everything online, both positives and negatives. Ms. Param, yeah. Yes. Yes, Ms. Mehta. You were sharing?
I think it is very important for the parents and teachers to have very transparent conversations. We teach them and we always give them a lot of moral values and, which immediately start seeming like lectures to the children. But it's very important to have heart-to-heart conversations every day to teach them the focus that they need to have and where they need to be. Children are lost. They don't know what lies ahead of them. And if we show them that here is something very strong in them and here is where they can be and here is where they are right now, and we take them there with conversations, I believe those conversations and well-being exercises like mindful exercises, they bring a lot of focus into the children. They're small, it takes them time to get focused on mindful exercises, but I've seen them really work. That outside the home or class environment, take them for nature walks, let them do mindful exercises and then have conversations with them. And I have seen that has reversed a lot of unfocused cases. That is my take.
Great. Yes, Dr. Yash.
Yeah, so I wanted to share that if we can show the children good movies, for example, a movie on Helen Keller or Tare Zameen Par. So by that, we can teach them to discipline how to use the screen or how to use the entertainment material. So we need to teach them, then only they will be able to differentiate good and bad material, what the person has asked. I think I have answered that.
One more thing, I'm sorry, I'm saying again, one more thing that works very well is earlier it used to be reprimand and reward. today reprimand obviously is not such a great idea, but rewards, little rewards for everything that they're supposed to do, telling them if you do this well and better than last time, then here is what I can do. You will get some extra play time, not necessarily chocolates and expensive things, but just some extra time of what they love a lot. So that reward, by telling them that this is what mom and dad or what a teacher desires, if you do this, this is what I'll be able to give you. That motivates them and encourage them to do what they're very good at.
True. Dr. Dapinder, if there's one question, if you could answer that. How do we deal with the challenges with special reference to differently abled children? How do we address differential learning? Do we get special books for SLD children?
Dr. Dapinder is logged out. So Dr. Komal, can you take this question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, can you just repeat the question, please?
Yes. So the question is that how do we deal with the challenges with special reference to differently abled children? How do we address differential learning? Should we get special books for SLD children?
Yes, so I think every school has their own strategies to work with special needs, and especially first important thing is, to set up a plan in process that how a school or how a class specifically will fulfill the criteria. And definitely there are a lot of techniques, which are being adapted with special kids, especially, giving them attention. For example, right now I can talk about the example of Bahrain right now, and especially not only in schools, in higher education as well. We have a equal opportunity given to them. They can sit in their class, and when they are required to go for the assessments or the tests, they have been given maybe, for example, the time frame is more for them, and they can use other learning tools to give the answers, not only the written form. It is an audio book that they can use, and maybe audio recording works. So every system has their own provision to it. It is just exploring and setting up a right example, I think. And yes, so it is like all of them have special provisions, and also there are certain specific tools which every school can use. And as I said, higher education is also using nowadays.
Thank you. There's one more question, Dr. Komal, that one of the participants has asked that how can a parent be prepared to accept that a child may be showing signs of disability and may require to be screened and need support?
So I think if the child is already going to the school, I think that school has additional responsibility. I know there are a lot of other responsibilities, but yes, empowering parents is a very tough, challenging task, I understand. And so empowerment should come from maybe if the first stakeholder is school, who has really identified. So they need to empower well. They need to take parents in the confidence. And I think setting them, and understanding and giving them the examples from the real life is something which is very, very important. And they need to tell their child is not alone. And there's a complete system which is working in favor of, the child. So what we do is normally we simply diagnose and we just leave the parent there itself. I think with the diagnosis, the proper prevention and also the intervention should come hand in hand. So whenever, a doctor diagnoses, the doctor always provides what is the solution for it. I think the solution-based approach is something which is required from all the stakeholders at this point. And definitely parents will be easy to convince at that point. But when we only talk about the problem, it is really very tough for parent to accept it. And that, as I said, that comes with awareness and set policies. If you are able to, tell them, it's okay, your child can be dealt well, and there are equal opportunities later on. I think the issue can be handled in a much better way.
Yes, thank you. Paramjit ma'am, I'd like to ask one of the questions which has come in the chat box. We've got many questions, but I think we've already overshot our time by 24 minutes. So we will take the last two questions today. And the question, Paramjit ma'am, this is to you. As mentioned, parents are welcome to attend the classes with their ward and see how learning takes place. How many parents are allowed at a time? Will not the presence of one or two parents make the other children feel the absence of their parent and make them cry? What is the optimum class strength? in the classroom.
This is Manisha. I just got a message from Paramjeet ma'am. She has lost internet connection, if any other.
So I'm sure we will be able to get back to you about this because it's very specific to her setup. And, maybe even on the website, there will be, the way the school functions. And I'm sure we can reach out to her in the school when we'd like to. The next question, I think, Ms. Mehta, if I could ask you that question, which best practices from around the world can be adopted in Indian curriculum, keeping in mind the diversity of our country?
I've written that as well, and I feel none of the international best practices are unrealistic. They can all be incorporated into our Indian curriculum very nicely. It's just that we get very bogged down by things like completion of syllabus and making children rote and their marks. And once we, as a school, as an ecosystem, once we lift our focus from just marks and syllabus and come to the development of every child, we can adopt all of these international best practices, and it works both ways because NEP now directs children to be more enterprising in their answers, and they incorporate skills like reading and everything that was not there before. So all these are coming from international best practices. If CBSE is encouraging those, NEP is encouraging those, then I don't think that there is any harm in changing our mindset as educators.
Can I add to
Please.
This, Ms. Manisha?
Yes, please.
All right. So I think I'll just give one example, from the real life, because when you talk about the best practices, so when, my child was going to Dubai, one of the schools in Dubai. So it was like detachment is something, the separation anxiety is something which a child was going through. And there was one learning which came in, okay, so what a parent can do is, write a note and keep it in the tiffin box. So whenever the child's open in between after 1 hour or so after the school, so that smile which comes on the child and the trust, and the safety that, okay, parent is there and you are connected to them. So that was one of the things which make the child really comfortable, and that practice goes on in all the early years. So I think that was one of the important, interesting answers, that yes, there are a lot of small ways which make child really comfortable in school and enhance learning.
Yes, thank you so much. I'd like to thank all the panelists who are here. We now move on to the quiz. The link for the quiz would be put in the chat box as well as the feedback form. I request all the participants to please participate in the quiz. Certificate of appreciation will be provided to the participants who answer it correctly. I would like to close this session by thanking the Navtika team, our esteemed panelists, and all the participants who have joined today for the symposium. Early childhood education is the key to progress, like we've all discussed, not only for an individual, family, community, nation, but also the world. We have been deeply involved in the theoretical understanding as practitioners of how children learn and what innovative strategies one can use. From Jean Piaget talking about children constructing their knowledge by themselves, to Vygotsky's theory, which emphasized on the role of adult as a guide. We've been learning and inventing all along the way in our classrooms. There are innovative practices which have been, understood and implemented from across the globe, keeping the context of the child at the center to ensure holistic development of the child. Thus, investing and providing for care and education of young children should be the focus of every stakeholder in the community. Today, we've been, through the symposium, being able to gather a global perspective on the importance of early childhood education, the various pedagogical approaches, creating an effective learning environment for children, and also importance of inclusion and diversity, from the beginning. So certain key learnings that, through our sessions have been to recognize the development of children here and now, the importance of development of the brain and keeping that in mind while planning and organizing. I think so beautifully it was talked about how, plan and implement in such a way that children fall in love with learning. So that's like a beautiful thought. While we understand, I think, central to the theme that what are the various milestones of development and how we can design age-appropriate activities to ensure that we are working towards the 21st century skills in our classrooms and beautifully woven into our curriculum. Apart from that, I think recognizing the individual talents and skills of each child and designing a program around it is a thought which was shared today. And finally, not to leave out, but all stakeholders, but building a strong bond between the parent, teacher, and the child, to which bond really helps in that holistic development that we talk about. So I think thus it becomes important to emphasize on high quality care and education during early years, which in turn will have a lifetime of positive consequences for all individuals. So in India, like Paramjit ma'am talked about the introduction of NEP 2020, it actually further goes on to elaborate on the practices for foundational stage. And through that, we hope to create an equitable, inclusive, and plural society. While play is the central focus of the foundational stage as we see it, and it's also part of the overall experience of the child. So the curriculum that we all are striving and we're hoping that we work on it. It also lays a clear path for the goal of achieving foundational literacy and numeracy as per NEP 2020 with each appropriate strategies. So I think let's all strive to do our best in our areas of work with our students at the center and as a collaborative approach and with open communication always. So thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you had an enriching session. We would also like you to check the website for Navtika Journal and contribute articles for the upcoming issue. So I now call on Ms. Sona Gumbar for the valedictory address.
Thank you so much, Manisha. And pranam everyone and a very good afternoon. And as she said, the session, I'm sure we overshot by almost 30 minutes. But I think it was worth attending this entire forum. So on behalf of Salwan Education Trust, a pioneer in early childhood education and the entire fraternity of management of all Salwan schools, I extend a very heartfelt gratitude to all present here who have contributed to this interactive and insightful session. My deepest gratitude goes to Dr. Indu Khetrupal, Chief Advisor of Navtika, our journal on early childhood care and education, for being with us to inaugurate today's symposium and launch our new release of Navtika. So I'm sure her profound address definitely had set the tone for the session by clearly indicating the importance of early years. We are grateful to her for sharing her vast knowledge and acumen in this domain. And as she rightly emphasized on the child's readiness, family readiness, school's readiness, therefore it becomes our moral and spiritual duty as educators to see how a child grows and learns. I must mention my deep sense of appreciation to Dr. Catherine, who has somehow left because of the time change in the timings here. So she has provided many insights on defining the criticality and importance of ECCE. As Dr. Catherine very rightly said, that it's our responsibility to give our best possible start to each and every child. They are the ones who will be making the decisions for us and for themselves in the latter years of their life. I also take this opportunity to extend my most sincere thanks to all the eminent speakers who have joined from different geographies for sharing their findings on ECE. They have shared with us some of the key features, disseminating important information to all the practitioners here through intense deliberations and discussions by giving their perspective to us. I am further thankful to Ms. Manisha Goel, our moderator, who built a seamless connect between all the speakers and weaved the discussions so beautifully. An event of this dimension cannot happen overnight. It requires meticulous planning and execution and an eye for details. I am very grateful to the core team, all my fellow principals of Salwan schools, our technical team for extending their full support and cooperation in this direction. I also want to acknowledge the efforts of team Salwan Montessori School, especially our school counselor, who has again wholeheartedly contributed in all her capacity. And above all, I thank all the participants, be it principals, academicians, counselors, psychologists, teachers, parents, who have joined us today from diverse backgrounds and are working towards the cause of education. Thank you once again for joining us. And I must say, this was truly an intuitive and thoughtful session, providing us the guidance to understand the changing paradigm in the field of education to nurture the future of global citizens. Please stay tuned with Navtika, our journal that would continue furnishing thought-provoking articles by distinguished educationists, sharing innovative practices, book reviews, and other features pertinent to early childhood care and education. To conclude, Salvan Education Trust has a long record of holding conferences and global meets with the mission of building the discourse on early childhood care and education. And I hope such forums would continue to receive generous support from a variety of organizations. So I look forward to connect with you all again in future with many more interactive sessions. So hereby I close the symposium. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone.